on for more is Bob Herrera-Lim, the Managing Director of CEO advisory firm Teneo. Good seeing you again, Bob. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Kathy.
So what do you think was the bigger plot twist here? Is it the cabinet-level resignations or Senator Imy's speech at the INC rally?
I think you've seen a surprise a day, right, for the past several days, starting with Zaldico's revelation. So from our point of view, it's part of the political churn that's happening. Obviously, Marcos's opponents think he's in a vulnerable position. And then Imy coming out with all these allegations obviously raises the sort of ante in terms of the anti-Marcos forces. So it's now the challenge for the administration, sort of how to navigate all these challenges, how to convince people that they are not telling the truth or they are politically motivated. So there are a lot of things on the president's plate, and obviously the replacement of two cabinet ministers with Secretaries Go and Secretary Ralph Recto is meant to stabilize some of the situation, but that's only part of the bigger wheel. The bigger wheel for many Filipinos that still remains unanswered is the question of what happened with this corruption scandal, who is responsible, and who will be punished.
So are you saying that it didn't move the needle, the cabinet revamp that just happened? Because we just had one about 6 months ago, and that was the president asking everybody to tender their resignations.
No, I don't think it moved it that much. Obviously, it takes away, there were always questions, right? What did the budget secretary know? What was the participation of other officials in the executive, ranging from the line agencies to people within Malacanang? And obviously, there's an attempt to move them to the side so that they don't become the focus of political discussion, but it still does not answer the long-term question, the bigger question of what really happened. So it's sort of a temporary diffusing of the situation, but it doesn't answer the primary question. So I really don't think it moves the long-term needle of people wanting answers, needing answers, and then deciding whether or not to support the president still or not. The Iglesia ni Cristo rally also showed their political clout, but they did convince a lot of people that, now is the time to give up on the president, now is the time to give up on the Marcoses. As the statement you read showed, there's still significant segments of society that say, no, now is not the time to give up on this government or, throw it out. So
could
I
it
think
have
we are
raised
still in
the
that
temperature
situation.
then? I mean, to market watchers, the revamp raises questions on the part of investors. Are the changes necessary? Do the changes have something to do with the current corruption issues? And in the new lineup, how will the direction of the economy be?
So yes, they do have something to do with the corruption scandal, right? The budget secretary was mentioned. I think the nephew of Executive Secretary Bersamin was also mentioned. So it has something to do with the budget controversy. And the thing is, therefore, the change happened because of that. The question is it enough to convince people that changes are happening? I don't think it will convince people. Secretary Go is well-intentioned. I've known him for some time. I think he wants to do a good job. Secretary Recto is somebody who has his pulse on politics and at the same time understands what happens to the economy. So in that sense, they'll better be able probably to coordinate. That will be the expectation. And they will try to keep the financial system stable to insulate the economy. But all of these will not have the desired effect if people's confidence in the bigger issue, the bigger question, what happened with the flood control funds, what was the participation of senior members of Congress, what was the participation of senior members of the executive. If these are not answered, these will be temporary measures. They will not answer the bigger question.
And the big answer is in the street protests that we're seeing, the revamp unfolding, just as the protest from Manila to EDSA wrapped up. It wrapped up a day earlier than planned, but we still have the second installment of the trillion peso march on November 30th. So how do you think that would pan out, given what we've seen so far with the revamp?
So we're like in the middle stages of a chess game, Kathy. So people are saying we're frustrated, we're angry. You have the Iglesia ni Cristo bringing people to voice the sentiment. Now, some people suspect the Iglesia always has motives. I don't want to take away from the Iglesia anything. They also care about the country. Their followers want to see better governance. I am sure of that. Now, there's also another group coming out in the next in a couple of weeks, and they also want good governance for the country. So these are opening games. The question is, how does the administration respond? How does the ICI respond? If 1 to 2 months from now, maybe let's say sometime in February next year. The perception is only small fry are prosecuted. If the ICI is not coming forward with good conclusions, as people would like to define it, right? Really finding out who is responsible, then people might say this process is leading nowhere, right? And their frustration then with the Marcos government grows. So the next 2 months, it is not this month that is important. It is the next 2 months that will be important because people generally are giving the ICI still a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. And they are saying we want to see first how the Marcos administration fully addresses it. If the Marcos administration does not address it, then yes, we have to reassess by February probably or March.
Won't we know before Christmas? Because Marcos said heads will roll before the Christmas rush. And on the other hand, former Congressman Zaldívar saying there will be more evidence against those he named, including Marcos. Could the outcomes of either tip the country into political instability?
Yes, definitely, right? So the question is, because it was Ombudsman Remulla, former Secretary of Justice Remulla, said he will file cases by the 15th of December. I think they recognize that something must be done before the end of the year, before the Christmas season comes in. Now, obviously, the people who do not like the Marcoses, like former Congressman, or still Congressman Zaldico, will try to come out with something that will also upset that timetable. So again, we're still in the middle game where there will be move and counter move by both sides. And then people, just like us, people in media, people in the academe, the business community, will have their own discussions. Is the process credible? Is CO more credible than the government? Is the government doing something that is right and proper and they believe is moving forwards towards real resolution? These are the things that are not yet settled. So yes, it can still tip into instability. I think, Kathy, as a final point, we think the military is still also watching this. And as an institution, they would not like to get involved. The risk always is that, similar to what happened in Oakwood in 2003 and 2006, I think, right after the election controversy, there are segments of the military that might believe that the process is not working, and that's what we're watching out for. The problem is that is extremely opaque, that is extremely difficult to assess, but it's not, you can never say it's a 0%er in the Philippines, and I think that's the immediate risk that we're watching.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights, Bob. I much appreciate it, given the changing plot twists there. Bob Herrera-Lim of Teneo.